Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reacts. This week we're going to be looking at Halloween 2018. I'm going to give you guys my review of the movie, my thoughts on what I thought of it itself, and if I think you should check it out. So without further ado, let's get to it. Let's review Halloween 2018. Guys, there is a lot to like in this movie. Myself, I do consider this maybe one of my top 3 Halloween movies. I am going to do a rewatch of all of the Halloween movies soon, so that may change. But as of now, it is definitely in my top 3 in the entire franchise. First and foremost, my main positive with this movie would be Michael Myers himself. So for me, this was the movie that brought Myers back. So he's very much the boogeyman in this movie, or the Shape. He's not just this, walking zombie that's going around killing people. He's very much a mysterious character. You don't really know why he's doing it, and you are again interested in finding out who the boogeyman is. So James Jude Courtney plays the role of Myers in this movie, and for me he is the best Myers we've had since Nick Castle's version in the original movie. Now a lot of that might be down to Nick Castle coming back to the role and maybe giving a few pointers to James Jude Courtney himself. But even at that, he does bring new nuances to the character. He brings a whole new look to him. He is a bit taller. He's a little bit more brutal in this movie, but I enjoyed that about him. So the Michael we get in this movie has been in Smithsgrove Sanitarium for the last 40 years. So after the original events in 1978, Michael was essentially captured and brought back to Smithsgrove, and he's been there ever since. The story picks up with 2 podcasters that are coming to Smithsgrove essentially to interview Michael to find out, why he did what he did in 78, and is there an actual reason behind the madness with regards to him. From that first scene, we definitely get an idea of what this Michael Myers is going to be like. Again, he is quite big, he's quite menacing looking, but he's also that same Myers we got with the original, where he's quite silent, he's quite mysterious. He's in like a courtyard essentially at the start of the movie. It's kind of made out like a chess piece, which I thought was really cool. He doesn't say anything, just like Loomis said in the original. He never ever spoke. It's the exact same thing here. But you do get a sense that he's dangerous and he is someone you should be scared of. You do get a sense that it is the same Michael Myers from that first movie. His mannerisms, the way he kind of walks, the way he kills, a lot of it is very similar to Nick Castle's version. Another thing I really like with Michael Myers in this movie is he has a presence to him again, and he has a lot of kind of mystique. So in the original, you don't know a lot about him, you just know that he's essentially this little kid who killed his sister back in '63. Ever since that, he's kind of been silent, he hasn't done anything, and that's the same Myers we get in this. He hasn't essentially done anything in 40 years. So people have lost interest, of course, in him, except for one of his doctors and these 2 podcasters. One thing leads to another, and essentially Michael Myers escapes from the sanitarium. He goes after the 2 podcasters in, for me, what is one of the best scenes in both the series as well as the film itself. So the 2 podcasters, they stop off at this gas station, and let me tell you, if there's a scene in this movie you should see, if you just want one singular scene to get a feel of what this movie is, that is the scene to watch. So the 2 podcasters stop at this gas station, and the female podcaster just goes to the bathroom essentially while they're taking this stop. So the scene, it's similar to one that was set up in Halloween H2O, but here it is done much better. The scene itself is quite menacing. Michael in it, he is quite scary. There's a little part where he essentially has a bunch of teeth in his hand and he drops them over the bathroom stall, which I thought was very neat, and it goes back to the way Michael Myers did always like to play, tricks on people. If you look at the original series, he sets the bodies up in certain ways to scare Laurie Strode. He does the same kind of thing in this movie. What he does to those podcasters is absolutely terrifying. It is quite bloody, this movie. I will say there is quite a bit of gore in it, but again, it goes back to that feeling of it makes you scared of Michael Myers again. It makes you feel like he's not fully human. He is a little bit, supernatural, but not going over the top like other entries have done. Another positive I have with this movie would be the character of Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis, for me, gives a powerhouse performance in this movie. She is definitely the Laurie Strode that we see 40 years before in the original movie, but she has a lot of baggage on top of her with this one. We do kind of get a little bit of a Sarah Connor vibe, and I'll be honest, when they announced that originally, I wasn't hugely gone on it. I didn't like the idea of Laurie Strode, being this badass Sarah Connor type apocalypse woman ready to take on the world. Wasn't a huge fan of it just because I thought it was a little out of character in this world.
Sarah Connor?
Yes?
So when we meet her in this movie, she's essentially kind of like a hermit. She's living alone in isolation. She does have a granddaughter and a daughter, which she doesn't see too much. Her entire life has essentially been about preparing for Michael Myers' escape and killing him. I think when Karen was growing up with Laurie, she was actually taken from her because Laurie did kind of turn into this, gun-toting crazy lady essentially that was just preparing for Michael Myers to escape. So all she was preparing for 40 years was the eventual return of Michael Myers and, a way to defeat him.
Michael Myers is a human being who killed his sister when he was 6 years old. And he came after you. We just want to know why. We want a glimpse inside his mind.
Michael Myers murdered 5 people. And he's a human being, we need to understand.
So when the two podcasters at the start of the movie, they go and meet Laurie Strode, they get an interview with her, again, just to kind of find out, what her opinion is of Michael Myers. Why does she think he did it, and why is she so scared of him getting out? Little moments like that, you do see her kind of perform similarly to where she was in 78's version. So she is quite scared, quite gentle, quite innocent in those scenes. As the movie goes on, you do see she's very much turned into kind of the new Dr. Loomis role. So throughout the movie, she's constantly warning people that Michael Myers will escape. When he does escape, she's the first one, she's onto the police, she's onto her family, she's trying to get everyone away, get everyone ready for what's going to happen. The exact same thing really that Dr. Loomis did in the original movie. And I like that about her. Personally, I think if they're going to take away the sister storyline, the best thing they can do if they're including Laurie Strode is giving her that Loomis type role, especially with her age. It's coming up to kind of being similar age to Loomis in the original movie, so why not? She does have a daughter Karen in this movie, as well as a granddaughter Allison. I did like them in the movie, I wasn't hugely gone on them. Allison I definitely preferred more than Karen. Karen was a little bit annoying, although a lot of that could have been to do with her husband. But Allison herself, the granddaughter, I enjoyed her in the movie. I thought she was quite good. I would have preferred she had like a bigger chase scene or a little bit more to do with Michael Myers himself in the movie. But saying all that, she fit the role well. She did what she needed to. She gave us that kind of, teenage storyline on the side. So her and her friends are very much that classic slasher team story. And she worked for that. I enjoyed the character. Again, I wasn't hugely gone on her, neither was I on the mother, but they were good in the movie. Another positive in the movie, guys, was definitely the kills, or should I say the kill scenes. So the scenes where the kills actually happen, I probably enjoyed more than the actual murders themselves. There were so many scenes in this movie that I loved for how they did it. So one in particular is when Michael Myers does eventually escape and he goes straight back to Haddonfield. We get kind of a Steadicam shot where we're just following Myers through different houses through Haddonfield. It's such a great scene. It reminds you immediately of the first 2 Halloween movies. One reason for that, it is a little bit of a recreation of the opening kind of scene in Halloween 2 where he goes from house to house, but in this they do it so well. With David Gordon Green's direction as well, it's very similar to Carpenter, so I love that aspect of it. The entire scene is done so well. You follow Michael from one house into another where he just pretty much murders anyone and everyone in his way. Another scene I really liked was the bus crash scene in the movie. So the scene where essentially Michael Myers escapes. A little boy and his father are driving down a road. They see this bus pretty much overturned and all these different patients out on the street. Now this scene I liked because it was quite scary, it was quite atmospheric, it reminded me of the original, but there is a bit in this scene where Michael Myers kills a little kid. Now that is a spoiler, but Myers kills a little kid in this movie, and to be honest, it came out of nowhere. When I saw the scene myself, I immediately thought, okay, so the kid's going to call the police, notify people, he will be okay, the dad will probably die. But when Myers kills that kid, again, just like the bathroom scene, it definitely sets you up of, This is a much different Halloween movie than we've got in previous years. This Michael is a lot more brutal, you know, he's darker. So again, he does kind of remind you of that first Myers in that first movie. He is someone to really be scared of, and you don't know what he's going to do next. Michael does like to play a lot of tricks in this movie. So for me, I love the original movie. It's my favorite movie of all time. And I always thought with the sequels, they never got that right. That kind of little thing. Now Michael does actually like to play quite a few tricks on people. So in the original, you know, he hides bodies in wardrobes, he hangs people from the ceiling. Annie's body, you know, he puts the gravestone on top of it on the bed. So he's always kind of setting little things up to scare people. In this, it's kind of the same. There's one scene in the movie where somebody gets murdered. Michael decapitates them, and he actually puts a flashlight inside their head to make it look like a jack-o'-lantern. I thought that was really cool. And there's little things like that throughout the whole movie where he actually does it. You know, he sticks one of the boys up against the door, one of the teenage boys. Little things like that I thought were great, and again, it took me back to that first movie. Another great thing with this movie is the score. So John Carpenter returned to Halloween for the first time, I think, since Halloween 3. So he returned to the franchise, and he actually did the score with his son. And this score is by far the best score, again, since we got from the original movie. I love the score. There's a few tracks in here that are brand new. They sound incredible. One in particular where I think it's The Shape Hunts Allison it's called. If you get the album on, you know, Spotify, if you buy it on CD, listen to that track. That is the best track for me in the whole movie. It's kind of like this epic score that kind of builds slowly with these big kind of rock anthem in the middle of it. I loved it personally. I still listen to it to this day, and I actually hope it is in the sequels to come. My last positive with this movie is quite suspenseful. So again, that's something that the last few movies, especially Rob Zombie's movies, has been missing. There are a lot of moments in this movie where it gets quite suspenseful. One in particular that I do like, so this is a bit tricky because I'm not a huge fan of the ending of this movie, but I do like the back and forth between Laurie and Michael when she's going through the house and she's looking for him. That scene for me, I was watching in the cinema, that was so scary because you just didn't know where Michael was. And I know a lot of people today say they don't like jump scares in movies, but a lot of people tend to forget Halloween, Friday the 13th, all these slashers did have quite a lot of jump scares, and this one definitely delivers on that. There's a scene where Laurie, she's in this room kind of covered with mannequins and she doesn't know where Myers is. She's checking wardrobes, she's checking here, she's checking there. That scene was so scary because it's just complete darkness, and that's what you want out of Michael Myers. You want him to always be in the shadows. You know, he is somewhere in the shadows, and when he comes out, you want him to give you a bloody fright. They're peppered throughout the movie, and I would definitely love to see more of that going forward. So guys, they are my positives for this movie. My negatives, however, I do have quite a few. The more I watch this movie, I'm definitely seeing more and more negatives, which is unfortunate. When I first saw it, it was definitely, you know, I kept saying, you know, it's definitely the best sequel in the franchise, but the more I do watch it, I do definitely see negatives. So for me, first obvious negative, and I think this is the same for everyone else, is the character of Dr. Sartain. My God, that is one of the most annoying characters in probably horror history. I hated everything about him. I liked him at the start of the movie, I will say that. When we first introduced him, I didn't mind the character. I didn't mind having a Loomis type character, and especially, you know, a student of Loomis. I also liked the idea that Sartain, you know, turned out maybe evil. I didn't mind that at all. That made sense. Not everyone's going to be this, you know, good doctor that just wants to help people and help Michael. You know, someone is going to be corrupted by him eventually, and they're going to see that he's quite powerful, and they want to know so bad why he's the way he is that they turn corrupt himself. I didn't mind that. What I hated was the delivery of it. There's a moment in this movie where Dr. Sartain is quite injured. He kills another character in this movie, and he drags Michael Myers' body from the ground along the road into a car, and then has the audacity to put on Michael Myers' mask, and it looks absolutely ridiculous. That scene, I remember being in the cinema and I just wanted to ignore it. I wanted it to be over. Now luckily for us, the producers or maybe the writers of this movie also maybe realised that wasn't working very well, and they do kill Sartain off, you know, maybe 10 minutes later. He gets his head smashed in. Another great kill. But for me, I don't know where that came from. It didn't really make any sense, and at the end of the day, it seemed they only did it as a way to bring Michael Myers to Laurie Strode. Another negative I would have is this movie was essentially billed as removing the sister storyline for Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, and I do like that about it. There's a moment in this movie where Laurie Strode looks up in a window, she sees Myers, and they have this, kind of iconic new scene where they see each other again for the first time. That was really cool. Michael goes off and he leaves the house. Laurie shoots him. I think she shoots him in the shoulder, and he doesn't even really acknowledge her. He just walks off. And I remember thinking, okay, that's pretty cool, because that's going back to Myers just being quite random, and not having an obsession or anything like that. I thought that was great. Until later on in the movie, when Laurie starts saying things like, he's waited for me and I've waited for him. And straight away that puts you back into the thing that, okay, so is his obsession Laurie Strode? What was the point of getting rid of the sister storyline if, the whole franchise is going to rely on both of them killing each other or hating each other or following each other? So for me, that didn't really work. They didn't really want Laurie Strode being the sister because it limited Michael to what he could do. But then like halfway through the movie, they suddenly say his obsession is her and her obsession is him, and that's the reason they're both alive. So that didn't make any sense, and it did seem quite confusing, and it gave the impression that the filmmakers didn't necessarily know which direction they wanted to go in. Another negative I have with this movie would be the comedy, and one character in particular, which is Karen Strode, Laurie's daughter. Her husband was again a very annoying character. He wasn't as annoying as Dr. Sartain, but I think that's just because he didn't have as much screen time as Dr. Sartain. But when he was on screen, he was hella annoying. He kept saying stupid little one-liners that really didn't hit. I know they were meant to be funny, but even in the cinema I was in, they were just awkward and uncomfortable. One little thing, he said something about his penis, and it just doesn't work. Again, when that character was killed off, I think everyone was pretty much delighted. I loved that he was killed off and no one even cared about him, because he was just quite irritating throughout the whole movie. Anytime he was on the screen, he was talking about jiu-jitsu. It went nowhere. It made no sense, and it didn't really fit with the tone of the movie itself. So every time there was comedy, it didn't really work. The only time I liked the comedy, there was a little boy that was being babysat by one of Alison's friends. I did like that babysitter character as well. I wish she was in the movie more, but what can you do? I did like her little relationship with him. Saying that though, when she does eventually get attacked, at one point he cracks a joke. And for me, when I watched the original and Tommy Doyle was quite scared of Michael Myers, he was the boogeyman to this child. Again, it didn't work with the tone of the movie, that this new little kid was just cracking jokes and running out of a house. So I didn't like that. Little bits of comedy worked, but overall I just thought the comedy was unnecessary, and I really do hope they tone it down for future movies. And my last negative with this movie, guys, is the final act of the movie. Now, I don't hate this final act. To be honest, it was fine. It wasn't anything to write home about, but at the same time, it wasn't awful in any way. It's definitely better than half of the final acts of the Halloween franchise movies. Final act essentially sees Michael Myers come to the home of Laurie Strode, where she is with her granddaughter Alison and her daughter Karen, and it's this kind of final fight between Laurie and Michael with the Strode daughters. It was a good little setup, especially when you kind of see this as a battleground between both of them. I did like the back and forth between Laurie and Michael. For me, what I didn't like, it was just very abrupt. Now, I know they did test screenings at the time and people didn't like the actual ending, so they did go back and reshoot it. So that could explain why it was done quite hastily. But saying all that, I still think they could have done a little bit more. The movie ends with Laurie's house burning down. She leaves with her daughter. She's quite injured, and it just cuts to black once they get rescued. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Again, I thought they could have done a lot more with it, or at least just let us see what happens right after that. As well as that, I know a lot of people had issues that Laurie just left Michael to burn in the house. It wasn't a very fulfilling ending, especially since this movie had been advertised as, the last battle between Laurie and Michael. It did kind of leave it open, especially there's one shot where they show the basement on fire and Michael's not there. So it did definitely leave it open. Personally, I do think when the movie was being promoted and they did see how popular it was getting, they were more than likely thinking straight away of a sequel, and that's why they left it open. But for me, look, it's a small negative. It's not a huge one. My main issues with this movie are the comedy. Out of everything, that just didn't work, and that weird kind of cult-of-torn storyline they went down with the Doctor. I wasn't fans of both of those. Saying all that though, there's a lot more positives than negatives in this movie. I'd highly recommend the movie. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you are a huge Halloween fan, more than likely you've seen the movie already, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on the movie myself. I am going to be doing a rewatch of every Halloween movie next. I'm doing it currently with Friday the 13th, and I'll be doing with Halloween at the same time. What I'm planning to do is kind of do a yearly. So if Halloween 2 came in 1980, I'll be lining that up with the Friday the 13th. So I'm hoping to do it that way. We'll see if that'll actually work out. But saying all that, I do want to review every movie and just kind of see, does my opinion change? There's one or two movies I haven't seen for quite some time, i.e. Halloween Resurrection, because I despise it. But I want to see, does my opinion change when I give these movies a rewatch, which will culminate in a ranking at the end. If you like this movie, guys, let me know in the comments below. Please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. If you do want me to review something else, guys, let me know again in the comments below. And until next time, Heidi ho.